Max, so lovely to see you in Tanzania. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Lovely to see you here.
Good to be here.
How was the meeting this morning?
I thought the meeting was very successful and interesting and engaging as well. I mean, interesting is a very kind of a word you can read a lot of things into, but I was pleasantly, I enjoyed the session. Because often you work on a report such as this and you're in a very small group of people, quite removed from the continent. Then you take it out into the world. And a few weeks ago, we had engagement with very high-level people from across the continent and also globally at the African Development Bank meetings. But this meeting for me was very different because we were able to engage with a different but just as important group of stakeholders. You know, people more at the country level, Tanzania media, but also stakeholders from other backgrounds. And what I found most interesting, what I very much liked about the session was the feedback was overwhelmingly positive, but also there were some very pertinent comments and questions regarding how one moves forward with such an agenda as this.
You really shared the report and share so much data. So we talked about data this morning, and so how important in having data is how important having data is crucial in this report, because the report is very comprehensive, a lot of data inside, but people didn't know about those data. So did you find that useful? Did you find it useful that people actually saw the data, understand the data, and want to take it forward?
Of course, one of the most important things one is trying to do with a report such as this is to tell a narrative of Africa that is seen as being real by the majority of Africans when they read it or hear of it. So that narrative must be nuanced, but also it has to be factual. Therefore, data is one of the things that the Africa Progress Panel puts a lot of emphasis on, making sure that before something is said, it is well sourced. And it's sourced as much as possible from those who have knowledge of what is going on in Africa. Now, we all know that data is a problem on the continent. I mean, it came out in the meeting today that even especially at the national level, there are issues where data can't be trusted, it can't be found. And so a core aspect of the job of compiling such a report as this is to make sure you take from as many different credible sources as possible, distill what can actually be said down, and then put it out to the world in a coherent narrative. So I was happy by the feedback that was given by the stakeholders in the meeting today, but also aware of the remaining challenges. For example, I know that some people say that at the country level here, there was a need to really try and upscale the data and what kind of help can be given from an organization such as APP. We don't, as I said, have the capacity to help with that, but there are others who can. And there's definitely a need for that.
You also mentioned collaboration, and you take a lot of time in writing this report and collaborating with many think tanks across Africa and other stakeholders. How important it is for us Africans to collaborate when it comes to bringing reports like this in the continent, in your view?
I think collaboration and partnership, first and foremost among Africans within the countries and within the region, is critical. It's one of the most important things. So I keep coming back to that word narrative. Africa for a long time has been sold narratives, written, packaged, and disseminated by others, to the advantage of others. It's important now that there is a new narrative out there about Africa, that we also, though, even though it's a positive narrative, we say, hey, let's wait a minute. Yes, you're saying things are good on the continent. Yes, we know. We always knew we were good, we were strong, we were rich. But actually, that's not how we see it. This is how we see it. And in order to do that as an African narrative, Africans must talk to each other, must collaborate, must have partnership at an intellectual level, based on facts, and in a way I'm calling for an analytical partnership, so that we really look at Africa through a perspective that is at all times trying to see what is best for the majority of Africans, so that whatever is said about the continent is said how we feel it, and the direction we want it to go in is one which there is a consensus behind in terms of the African future. So the narrative is not just about the past, not just about the present, but about a present that will dictate a future that is better for the majority of Africans, a transformation of the continent. So partnership in that sense is critical.
We also touched on policies. People question what the report could do for the grassroots. At the policy level, it's beautiful that we have Mr. Anand chairing this panel, but if we say something, people ask, would we listen to us? Would the African president take this on board? What is your view on that?
My view is that this is a report, and all the recent reports of the APP are reports that have resonated at various levels, starting from the very highest level, presidents, African presidents, ministers, presidents and prime ministers in other parts of the world also, for example, last year's report, academic extractors, have found it something that they are interested in and they want to read. But it's not just a report for the key decision makers. Of course, we want them to read it. It's important that they read it because they dictate the agenda in terms of policy change and implementation on the ground. But it's also a report that we want to be read and engaged with by a wide range of stakeholders, such as the people we had here today. And I kept emphasizing to them, we can put the ideas and the perspectives of particular situations on the table. We can take it so far. We as APP can make concrete recommendations. For example, in this one of the key ones is regarding equity. The wealth that the continent has must be shared. Recommendations are made there about that. Recommendations are made about stopping the plunder of Africa's resources. Those are just recommendations. We are not able, the panel is not able to implement these recommendations, but its job is an important one, is to raise some noise, to raise these issues to the top of the agenda, and to basically try and engage with others and push its recommendations in front of leaders. And then also by the fact that others read it, like I said to people in the meeting, this is a democracy here, you have elections, they said, next year. You know, there's some issues in this which you should maybe want to, in the media, make some noise about, put before some MPs, so that those people who are in the positions to actually make the changes at the policy level are aware that there's some pressure from outside too.
Of course.
Because don't forget, policymakers have a lot of conflicting demands.
Yeah.
And although sometimes things are not done because of willful neglect, but in a way because of benign neglect, because they say, well, what are our priorities and so forth. Well, if the priority is that you really need to finance an African green and blue revolution, I already know you read the report. You might be thinking about it, but if there's a groundswell of civil society, private sector push saying this has to be done now, we have to take agriculture as a business opportunity in Tanzania, that can really help move the agenda forward. So everyone has some role to play. The APP's role is to put the issues on the table, to advocate for kind of change that we think will benefit the majority of Africans, and then it's for everyone to take it, distill it, and see how each and every one of us in their own way can push for the change that we want to see.
Lovely, Max. That's what our job is, to share ideas across Africa.
Exactly.
Thank you for the insight. Thank you for coming to Tanzania. It's lovely to have you here. Thank you so much.